going.
All right, we thank you for joining us on Overtime on HBO.com.
Settle down, settle down.
Jets!
You walked out, and I appreciate you three sticking with us and going on overtime with us. You walked out and you said, I wanted to see some blood on that side.
Well, I watched this guy play a lot of baseball, man, and that was spectacular that particular time when he was injured and gutted that thing out.
They think so, too. There are a lot of fans over here.
Well, wait a minute now. Let's not get mixed up. I'm not a Boston fan now. I mean, I am a New York Yankee fan as well as the Mets.
It's been a rough decade.
And if it wasn't for the way they spend money in the big leagues, the Pittsburgh Pirates might be in the hunt. Huh?
There you go. We love the Pirates, but not good.
But
not good.
Nothing.
Yeah.
You know, let's talk about that real quick. I meant there are 1,000 questions I had for any one of the three of you. You talk about 2004 and the bloody sock and that performance in Game 6 at Yankee Stadium, and it's, I guess it's human nature. I guess it's the nature of the beast that afterward everybody says, well, not everybody, but people said, that's not his blood.
Yeah.
It's like,
I was trying to figure out whose it was. Yeah, I mean, I wish it wasn't mine.
How painful was that procedure? I mean,
the procedure was painful. The game wasn't. I was numb. I didn't feel a whole lot from about the shin down. The only, and that was the game where it bled. The only problem I had was, if you ever see me on the bench, you'll see I was kind of pushing myself up because I was bleeding. There was so much blood on the bottom of my sock that my foot was sliding in my shoe. My foot was half numb, so I couldn't tell what part of my shoe was on. So I was having to push my foot down and to make sure my foot was in my shoe right. But it was mostly numb. The most painful part was the process. Because after that, they gave
the
you
numb part helps.
Yeah,
it
that
helps
did.
when it's numb.
It really did. And the
You've
fact
been
that,
numb.
A little bit, sometimes.
But
Let's not
that's
go there.
Is that off limits? Joe, you have been open about drinking and about sobriety now, and I know that it's. I mean, we talked before we came out on the stage. You look great. You're living life.
Thank you.
And I wonder. I'm not going to make an excuse for it, but I wonder when you think back on it. And I was thinking about this today, if there was some element of you trying earlier in your career to get over some physical pain that you were in on a day-to-day basis. I mean, even some of the stuff we take that we can get over the counter wasn't available back then. You've had the knee operations. You've been beaten up as an NFL quarterback. How much of the drinking problem goes back to pain?
You know what? My dad asked me one time, we were driving home from Tamarack golf course, and I told him the situation. He said, son, I didn't know you ever had a drinking problem. And I tried to explain it to him. I said, well, you know, Dad, it was kind of easy in that, well, when I left college, I was around it a lot. Everybody getting you a drink here, patting you on the back. You know, it became very easy to get to the point where it was habitual almost, after practice or after game or whatever. And it took a lot of experience, and thank the good Lord I've lived and survived, but it's just not right for me. See, I can't handle it. I've learned that. I'm convinced that I can't deal with it. And I am thankful that I've survived. Now, other people can deal with it, but I've been lucky. I've been healthier, and I've just been so damn lucky. I can't put it in my life. I've tried that. I stopped one time from drinking 13 years and didn't have a single drink, then went back to it for 3 years, almost killed myself. And then I stopped. It's been a little over 5 years now. Yeah, man.
Thank God you didn't, buddy.
Yeah. Joe, if a person ever thinks they have a problem with alcohol, they do. They need to get it checked out. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times folks wake up, boy, I do that. I wonder if I'd have, why am I doing that? You know, think it over, because we are creatures of habit, man, and sugar is a major addiction, and there's a whole lot of sugar in that stuff, too.
How did you stay away from it? I mean, good-looking quarterback from Pitt, you're in Miami, you're in the nightclub.
Drinks now and then. I mean, I'm not.
Yeah,
you know,
no, I don't mean that. I mean from the traps that are out there for any professional athlete.
You know, I think that you just try to make good decisions when you can. I mean, that's the most important thing. And I think you try to go back to your upbringing. And, you know, I had a great father. He passed away last year, but a great father that was an example for me. He was the greatest coach I ever had in my life, and just a guy that was just a perfect example to live by. So, and he was always someone I always had, you know, a chance to talk to every day and go back to with problems whenever it was, and I was very lucky that way. So, you know, when it comes to that, you know, I just kind of live by example from my dad.
You know, Curt, and baseball's so different from the NFL, and I've been around those clubhouses my entire life. I didn't expect this conversation to go in this direction, but it is an issue that after games, first of all, amphetamines have slowed, at least the use of amphetamines in the game have slowed if they haven't been eliminated altogether. But guys are racing, they're all jacked up. They're taking these greenies, and after the game, they're drinking themselves down at the end of the night, night after night after night.
But the hard part is that, and it probably is a lot more for these two guys' case. You come up as the high school big man on campus to go to college, you're around enablers the rest of your life. Everybody looking for a way in, everybody looking for a door in. They'll hand you anything and everything you need. And for me, it was much like that. I lost my father when I was 21. The year that I made the big leagues, my father died about 10 months before I made the big leagues. And I spent about 3 or 4 years in the big leagues. And I probably I drank to the point where it was going to cost me potentially a career. And because I was 21, I was making a lot of money. And, you know, that's what you did. You hung out with the boys. And you know, in baseball, one of the things that was always hard for me, the nights I pitched, adrenaline-wise, I usually didn't sleep the night I pitched. I was so wired and so up, and so I would literally go a day and a half without sleeping until after the next day. But everybody talks about the fact that we're lucky as professional athletes, and God bless everybody that has that God-given talent. And I was lucky to have that God-given talent. But getting to the big leagues, getting to the NFL is not about luck. It's about, I was raised by a tremendously strong man in a great family, and I had choices to do drugs and not do drugs, and I'm sure we all were presented with those forks in the road. I played with guys that were far more talented than I was at a lot of different stops along the way, who either died or went on to sell insurance or did something else because they made bad choices. And I was raised by people that taught me to make the right choices, but at the end of the day, you have to be accountable for the choices that you make.
I do want to open this up. Yeah, well said. I do want to open this back up. If anybody has a question, you want to shout it out, go ahead. We're all friends here now. Yeah, right there.
Do you guys remember the moment you had an arm that could take you places?
It's a good question. The question was, do you remember the moment when you knew you had it? And in all 3 of your cases, you had the arm to be good enough.
I don't remember the moment, but I remember about, 10, 12 years old, in that range, 11, 12 years old, my dad talking about, hey, you got a special talent. You have a special talent to throw a football. I threw base. I pitched. I got drafted by the Kansas City Royals to be either a pitcher or a third baseman, and so I had that ability, and he saw it, and it was around that time is when I knew I had a chance to do something. Now you got to do something with it after that, but I had that ability to throw a ball, and he taught me how to throw basically. And it was about that age,
Joe, how about you? When did you know you had it?
I always believed I could play, Really, I mean, as a little guy growing up, I had 3 older brothers, and they let me play occasionally, but there was something inside that always...
Right.
I wanted to play. I knew I could play. I wanted to play. And growing up, I was the smallest guy in high school on the team my sophomore year. I didn't even go to camp. Our team took 70 guys and left 4 of us at home. I was too small to play, man. And I ended up growing a little bit. It takes a whole lot of hard work. But I didn't know. Things just kept happening. When I got to Alabama and played for Coach Bryant, he may have been the first one to let me know that I had a future in football as a player. I always thought I might teach and coach afterward, but the real pro thing developed when I was in college, when these teams started sending me letters like they do.
But
to
you didn't
everybody.
know in high school you had a chance to be good, though. You had to know.
Oh, I knew I was good in high school.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's
Oh, yeah. I knew I was good in high
Yeah.
school. Yeah, we had a good team, and we won the championship.
Yeah.
But for Curt, you could almost answer it 2 times because you knew at some point as a young kid that you had enough in that right arm to maybe someday get there, and you were better than everybody else you were playing against. But then it did take that meeting with Roger Clemens when you were flopping around between the Orioles and Astros, and you weren't really realizing your potential.
I think I always believed that I was going to do this based on what my dad told me. I can remember very vividly, I was 11 years old and I was at a camp run by professional scouts. And they were all talking about 1 in every 100,000 kids that plays Little League gets drafted. 1 in every 10,000 kids that gets drafted makes it to the big leagues. And as sure as the day is long, I'm sitting there looking around going, wow, I wonder what these kids are going to do with their life. and I mean, I just knew. I didn't play varsity baseball until my senior year in high school. But I had a couple Little League coaches that looked at Dave Zoll, Mike McQuaid, who looked at me and said, and after Little League in the summer, I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona. It's 150 freaking degrees every day. They were keeping me after Little League to work, to do pickups and stuff. And I'm like, this sucks. I don't want to do this. And they were like, if you want to play baseball as long as we believe you can, which my dad always told me that was going to be that natural progression. But I look back on my career, and I think the reason I made the big leagues was because it didn't dawn on me until after I made it to the big leagues. I just assumed that's what you did. I played minor league baseball. I go to AA, AAA. I'm going to the big. Isn't that what you're supposed to do? And I never doubted I'd make it to the big leagues. And I guess, ignorance or whatever you want to call it.
We got time for one more. We've got about 3 minutes left. Go ahead.
We now know when the 3 gentlemen here knew when they had the arm to make it. Joe, when did you know you had the voice?
Well, I'm part of the Lucky Sperm Club. My dad did what I'm doing for 50 years and did it a lot better than I ever will. And I know that that as a kid, he and I were best friends. And he took me around with him to every big league city in the National League by the time I was 12. And I couldn't get close enough to him. And I wanted everybody to know that was my dad. I idolized him. And I think when you idolize your father and you're in a profession where you could theoretically follow him into the business, it was just the next natural step. I mean, in the same way, I'm not in their category. I could never be in that category, but I always knew that this is what I wanted to do, and I always knew that I'd do it at some point. One more question. Yeah, right there.
Marino. Was there ever you can call me Dan if you want. Was there a shutdown corner whose side you didn't want to throw to?
Good question. Was there a shutdown corner in the league?
In my career, there were certain guys that were just really, really good. Michael Haynes that played with the Raiders in New England. I mean, he was a guy that was tough. And Dion was amazing. Albert Lewis, a guy that played for the Kansas City Chiefs. Those are guys you would throw on them if you had a guy like Duper or someone there. But if you had a marginal guy, you wouldn't want to throw their way because their ability. But just off the top of my head, those 3 guys were really exceptional players.
Curt here has an interesting story about Deion Sanders in a different sport.
You play, in baseball. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
You had a little run-in with Deion. You flipped him, didn't you?
Yeah, well, so Deion steals a base in spring training. They're beating the 8-0. Plant City, Florida. It's 109,000 degrees out. So, I don't even want to be on the mound. It's so miserable. They're beating the 8-0 second, and he steals third base, which is just, you don't do that in spring training. So I got the ball back, and I walked over, and I said, really? He's like, what? I said, really? He goes, that's how I play. I said, all right. So the season starts 2 weeks later. Cincinnati's in Philadelphia. And a situation arises where there's 2 outs and nobody on, and Deion's up. So when I hit guys, I always wanted to make sure. I always wanted to make sure that they remembered it. So I would literally play burnout. I would throw the ball as hard as I could, and as I'm opening my eyes to let go of the baseball, he squares around to bunt. And I threw the ball right for the middle of his chest, and he throws the bat, and the ball hits the bat and fouls off. So then he's standing there, he's kind of like shocked. And I'm walking in as I follow in, because I watched him play football. So I'm walking in, I follow the ball in, and all of a sudden he realizes I'm standing there, and then people start to mill out, and all of a sudden somebody grabs him, and then he goes nuts. So after the game, they said to me, what happened out there? I said, well, let me explain something to you. There's not a slower white man on the field than me. He's the fastest cornerback in the NFL. The only thing between us was air and opportunity. But I've seen him play football. He's nothing more than a glorified flag football player. And
Oh, man.
and we lockered with the Philadelphia Eagles. They came over and thought that was the greatest thing they'd ever heard in their lives. Yeah. I was like, oh, that's cool.
How about that? One more?
But I'm sorry. Let me say, I have never heard anybody say that Deion Sanders wasn't the greatest teammate they ever played with, and he was a phenomenal guy. Yeah. And everything running after that, he is a great guy.
Back in the back. You're our last questionnaire.
Carry on. As you're in the twilight of your career, and you kind of see, well, your career is past, but your arms are protected. Do you ever feel, if I threw your ball down, you'd probably throw it back if you signed it? And do you still think you have it? If I threw your ball right now, to throw it back? Anybody?
No, I'm done. I can still throw it. I'm going to tell you that right now. Yeah, I can still throw it. I can't get out of the way, but I can still throw it.
If you threw it, would he remember it?
Yeah.
I got to believe there's an insurance issue right now.
Yes.
Yeah, don't hit any lights. Go ahead.
Throw it.
Lights? How about somebody's head?
Don't hit the lights. Don't hit the lights.
May leave across.
All right, go ahead. Slip, man.
Throw one to one of the
Sit down.
That ball's gone.
I wouldn't take it. Who in here is going to take it from me?
You want to mess with him?
That's actually what I wanted to point out, is that there's 3 gentlemen from the United States Marine Corps sitting here tonight.
Yes.
God bless you, and thank you 3. Thank you.
I can't thank these guys enough for staying out here late. Did you have fun with Dan, Joe, and Curt?
Thank you, Danny.
All right, thanks again for joining us on Overtime. You can check out Buckshot right here on HBO.com. And if you missed our show on HBO, that's what we're calling it, Curt.
Buckshot.
That's catchy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, this is live, right?
This is live.
You'll bounce back.
All right. Hey, listen. After what I went through in the first show, this is nothing. And if you missed this show on HBO, check out your local listings for air times. For now, again, good night from New York.